Welcome. Stephen Johnson Grove. Welcome, Malia and Deanna. Hopefully other people will get to see this by recording. I'm the strategy director at the Ohio Transformation Fund, but especially relevant for this presentation today, I'm also the vice president of the board. I'm going to let somebody else in here. Welcome. Another participant here, Mommy Activist.
Queen Karen Garrison.
Good afternoon. So good to have you. I was just telling folks, welcome. I'm the vice president of the board here at the National Network for Justice. I work in Ohio. I've been doing advocacy here for 15 years as a lawyer and policy advocate, working with grassroots leaders all around the state. And now with NNJ, I get to work with grassroots leaders all around the country. Today's session is about strategic planning. And let's see if I can get that to show up nicely for you all. Okay, how's that look for you? Can you guys see that pretty well?
Yeah, I can.
Great. Good. Now I can't see. It's always a bummer because like as soon as I turn the slides on, I can't see anybody else. Like I wish I could also see you all. Maybe I go, whoa, that probably just made it disappear. Let that come back. Okay, well, though I can't see you, I will do my best to keep going. And so the bummer here also, although maybe we can make it work anyway, is as you all know, Zoom usually has chats in the side. I love the chat. It's probably, I love it too much and people hate it. When I get all chatty in the chat. But I like the chat box because you can like pop your questions out and your thoughts and your hellos and by the way, what about this kind of questions. So though we don't seem, Angela and I backwards and forwards, we're trying to figure out how to get the chat function to turn on. For some no good reason, we couldn't get it to work today. It was just frustrating, you know. Nonetheless, you're all here and we can talk. And so just like pop in. I am not in the least offended by y'all interrupting or anything of that nature. So what we're going to do right now first is
Stephen, really quickly, I'm just going to ask everybody to mute themselves. I'm getting some background noise.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Let's see if I can see people. Okay. Great. Oh, now I can see folks. Actually, I figured out a way to do that. Can you all still see the slides okay? Great, super. Again, I've been doing this criminal justice reform work of various kinds, you know, organizing and advocacy and state house and the stuff that many of you do for a long time. And then through that have built up this experience working internal to my organization. And I was at something called the Ohio Justice and Policy Center, and now I'm at something called the Ohio Transformation Fund. And in both places, I get involved with strategic planning, guiding, you know, the process of building a strategic plan. And Deanna at the beginning, I think, was saying something about getting frustrated running a nonprofit. So I'm hoping today's session is exactly that kind of tool that's useful for anybody who's running an organization. It doesn't actually have, you don't actually have to be a formal nonprofit to use this. It's just like for any intentional group that's going to work together for any, you know, like a year or more. It'd be good to have a strategic plan. If you're going to do a project that's like more than a year, strategic plans are a good idea. For your whole organization, of course, you can use them for like projects and, you know, pieces of the thing, but especially for an organization, that's what I'm talking about today, is it's super useful to have a whole plan that wraps up the entire thing. And some people are like, that's not possible. And I'm here to say it absolutely is not only possible, it is necessary. It is indispensable. So we'll go through that. Let's see here. All right. So what I'm going to talk about today is when I say strategic planning, what am I talking about? Like, what is strategic planning when I say that word? Why should you even do it? Then we'll talk a little bit about how. Talking about gathering the data, building the thing, checking it, making sure it's valid, and then using it and selling it. So this quote I used at the top, the name of the presentation, plans are useless. Planning is indispensable, is from Dwight Eisenhower, talking about things like D-Day and great big things like going to war, horrible things like going to war. But I mean, this guy, right? He's a president of the United States. He's a general. You know, he knows about very large projects. And what's interesting is I hear this sentiment from people at every level when they're first getting involved with strategic planning, is a little bit of a frustration, like, I hate strategic planning, it's stupid. You know, you put it in a binder that sits on a shelf, which is kind of what Dwight Eisenhower's getting at here, is like, what's the point of having a piece of paper? You're just gonna crumple it up and throw it in the trash. But he's like, but there's some gold there to not throw away. And that is the process by which you created that piece of paper. So, and I'm going to actually, this is how my brain usually works. I like to work with paradoxes. So although I'm telling you plans are useless, I'm going to tell you all the ways in which a plan is actually useful. And then we're going to talk about the planning, the process. All right, so a plan is a document, right? It's recording a set of choices about how to accomplish something. Super simple. That's what a plan is. The planning is the live, warm human stuff. What Deanna is missing in her teaching with young people, or people who were incarcerated as young people and now are in their 40s in Texas. Planning is having the right folks, having a focused set of conversations to make an interconnected sequence of decisions. And that's so critical, is that when you're doing a strategic planning, you're setting up conversations with the expectation at the front that we're going to decide something. And it's going to be in a plan, which means someone's going to write that thing down in words. And I know I feel like I'm talking, you know, in kindergarten language here, and I apologize, but if you've ever had a strategic planning process, or even if it wasn't called that, like a plan, any kind of process where you're like a group of people planning on how to do something, how many times have you been in that group and somebody's like, yeah, we'll do that thing. And everybody's like, yeah, that's cool. And no one writes it down. Or and then you know, a week later, 3 weeks later, a couple months later, someone's like, yeah, we decided that thing. And it's like, that's not what we decided. I don't remember deciding anything. What did we decide? You know, this is why you make decisions. You're setting up a process with some expectations to it, where you're like, we're going to land something and we're going to like commit to it. There's going to be words that say what the words mean, and we're all going to agree what those words mean. And it's going to be written down somewhere. And then like when it comes to a month later or 2 months later or next year, we're going to pull that thing out and still understand what it means. Things may have changed. The world may have changed. Stuff may have happened. That's fine. But like, we as a group, our board, our staff, our advocacy campaign team, whatever you're building, you've made a decision and you know what that decision is. That's a critical part of this whole thing. And it's about what your when we're talking about a strategic plan for a whole organization, it's like, this is our identity. This is what we are. This is who we are, what we do as a holistic entity. So it really requires relationship and purpose. And that's way more interesting. I think that's a lot more juicy and alive, got more energy than, say, a piece of paper. So yeah, the paper matters. This is where I keep going in my paradox here. It's like the paper's meaningless. Screw the paper. And I also mean the paper's super important. But in there, the reason for the paper is that it's a way to concretize what you did. Like this picture here, I love, because it's these are all people I know, wonderful advocates across the state of Ohio. Amazing people. Each person in this picture actually has an incredible power of backstory of why they're involved in the fight for justice. So yeah, getting the right kind of people in the room to have a good conversation is key. Some more paradox for you about why we do strategic planning. Has anybody ever heard of this quote? I don't know. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. If anybody has, if not, it's fine. It's a kind of a businessy thing. But you know, I think people intuitively get what that means. Is that the culture of your organization? And when we say culture, a simple definition of culture is, how do we really do things around here? You know, you can say that like, we're an organization that's like about racial equity and gender rights and, you know, treating people like people. And then, well, that's what we say to the legislature, but inside our organization, do we really behave that way? That's the key thing. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So whatever, again, like what you put on the paper may not matter if it doesn't actually match how you really do things in your organization. So building that culture is key. And this photo, people I also dearly love in Ohio. This is at something called the Ohio Justice and Policy Center, where I used to work. And the guy in the middle there is David Singleton, the executive director there, one of the best lawyers in the country that I know of. But doing strategic planning, like as an exercise, as a process that you do one time, it's gonna, strategic planning is like usually a heavy lift. If you've never done it before, it's gonna take a lot of energy, and not one meeting, lots of meetings. It's gonna be a whole sequence of meetings to get a good strategic planning process done until you actually have a piece of paper that's worthwhile. But that process, that exercise of doing that whole process is how you build your culture. It is a way to build the culture of your organization, to be explicit like this. Let us not only say what our culture is, let's actually do it. Let's actually be it, and do that by putting out in very clear terms with a realistic plan what our organization is and does. That's what strategic planning could be. So I saying all this, like, this is a lot of preamble because so many people have such like alienated views about what strategic planning is. Like, this is a waste of time. It's dry and boring. It has no relevance to my work. It's, just sucks the life out of us. It's that thing we do because the board says we have to do it, or maybe a funder said we had to do it. But like, really the real work's over here where I'm saving someone's life, or like, just taking apart the machine of punishment in the state, or whatever the wonderful things you all do out there. And what I'm trying to say is, like, strategic planning can and should be integral to the real work and to the real identity of your organization. So a couple more bits of information. So, another thing is, people are like, after I do this strategic plan, okay, let's say I do a decent process on the strategic plan, but like, you understand what this quote here means. The map is not the territory, right? It's like, you could create a plan, and maybe we did a good process, and yeah, we had a good, there was good snacks at the meeting, and it was really great. We created this beautiful document, but like, the world is different than, oh, sorry, Angela's telling me I got a little audio problem. It's probably my microphone knocking against my shirt. Apologies. Thank you, Angela. Tell me if it keeps clicking, by the way. So the reality is too messy, right? The legislature changes. There's a new governor who got elected. The prison director dies, and some new prison director comes in. So now something's different with my plan that I made. So like, because the world changes, therefore planning is useless. That is a fallacy. Yes, the world changes. Planning is still important. Even though the map, the plan, the strategic plan you're going to create is trying to address a world that is very complicated, a good map will save your life. And I will tell you that because the map you are looking at right now on your screen is a map I used on a hike with my daughter. And in fact, we got flooded out and had to hustle very fast while the light was dying very fast, and get our tails out of the woods really quickly. And I will tell you that a good map will save your life. But also, it will, when things are going well, a good map will let you enjoy getting where you want to go. And that getting where you want to go may be, I'm going to pick on Deanna just because I had a couple minutes with her before the meeting started. She's talking about, working with juveniles on the inside, educating them. Where you want to go may be 20 people, former lifers, released from prison, not only released, but actually successful when they land, not reoffending, getting into education, maybe getting a job, having stable housing, reconnected with family. Like, for you, that's where I want to go. That's my vision. So a good map is going to get you there and let you kind of enjoy the process, maybe with a little bit less stress. Because if you're wandering around in the woods without a map, I'm going to tell you, it is a very stressful process. So that's what a good map can do for you. This is what a bad map will look like. Let me just see, somebody's trying to get in. Make sure I'm gonna let a bunch of people in here. welcome, ML Smith. I'm sure, oh, and Ayula's here too. Great, awesome. So this is what a bad map is going to do for you, which is not a whole lot of stuff. This is the same area as this map. So this map here is Spruce Knob. It's the highest point in West Virginia. So here we are. Here's a map, same, it's West Virginia. In fact, there's Spruce Knob. But I'm going to tell you, if you're in the woods with this piece of paper, this is utterly useless to you. Maybe you can crumple it up and make a campfire to keep yourself warm for a little bit. But this map will do you no good because look, it's at the wrong scale, right? It's got lots of detail at the wrong level. So of course, that's a useless kind of plan. Certainly you all have seen people who write, I've been part of a process or stepped into a process after the fact where there was a strategic plan and I get it out and it's this like document. It's like, you know, a binder of 30 pages. And the first 5 pages are like a novel about like the history of the criminal justice system and Texas and, you know, why racism is bad. And like, I'm like, oh, what, you know, that's actually not very helpful. I mean, it may be great. You know, there are times when this kind of a map is helpful, when that kind of a plan or that kind of document is useful, but it's not going to be useful as a strategic plan. And we're going to get into what useful looks like. What's the difference between a map that looks like this and the map that I had on the previous slide that's actually useful to you? Now, other people, that's me. And that's my daughter, who, of course, I love with my whole heart. She's 17. And for her birthday on the 4th of July, my daughter asked to go on a hike with me. And this is why we ended up in West Virginia. So this is great too, right? Deanna, you've got these people who were incarcerated juvenile, 15-year-old person committed an act of violence when they're 15, you know, their brain's not fully developed. Now they're 40, they've done incredible work, right? They've learned advanced mathematics, they're writing plays, they're doing art, whatever the beautiful things that you work with people on the inside there in Texas. So you're like, I want to tell that story, which is great. Let me tell you that like storytelling, and welcome back, mommy activist. I'm sorry you got bumped out. Looks like you're back in. That's awesome. So for strategic planning, people get into that and they're like, strategic planning, blah. It's like, I just want to tell a story. Let me tell you about this guy. And that's great. I mean, right, this is what we do. We save lives, right? You know, it's like the starfish story everybody talks about, right? You know, all these starfish dying on the beach, but we're like saving them one at a time. Or maybe we're doing system level stuff and we're getting in there and we're changing the law, changing the legislature. Awesome stuff. Amazing, brave work that people do in our network, in the National Network for Justice. And they have incredible stories. And we often, you'll hear, I mean, because I'm in all these calls like y'all are all around the country, we're all in Zoom calls everywhere. And we, you know, go to a training on like communications, fundraising. We probably had a fundraising call yesterday, Angela did, fundraising, you know, trying to recruit a new board member. And people will be like, you just got to tell a story, which is true. Yes, that is true. You've got to have good stories and you have them, you know, and figuring out how to tell those stories well, like this beautiful picture I could tell you about how my daughter and I ended up down the mountain and got there. And this is the nice part of the hike before the rain started. You can see the gray clouds over there. Yeah, that tells you a little something. Oops, let's see here. So this is a great story, but how will you get there on a different day? You still need a map. You still need a good map at the right level of detail. So yes, storytelling, and you still need a map, and you got to make a good one. So a good map is strong and flexible. It makes sure, this is a key thing, is like, I've heard, you know, again, a common objection I hear, like my former colleagues at this other organization I was at were like, strategic planning, okay, that's fine. But like stuff changes and I want to be able to do that new thing, you know, like we were lawyers. So it's like, you know, yeah, we can put that stuff on the plan, but like 6 months from now, that great case is going to come in the door. The prison's going to do something horrible, or some someone in prison is going to write us and have this incredible story. And we're going to take that case and it's going to be the rock star case. It's going to like bust everything apart. Super cool. But a good plan is both strong and flexible. When you're out in the woods and you got a map, sometimes you change course. That's actually okay. it's okay. You can say like, my plan is I'm going to go down this trail and we're going to get there by lunch. There's water. And so I know I can get some water to drink and I'm not going to die of thirst out there. I think that based on the map, it looks like that's a good place to camp later that day. All that's great. And then you might get out there and be like, oh, this isn't going well. Or it might be going really well. And you're like, I just want to stay here. You know what? I'm going to change plans. We're going to camp over there instead of over here because there's a waterfall and it's beautiful. Super great. Flexibility is great. But a good plan does not, in fact, having a good plan allows you to be both strong and flexible. Having a bad plan allows you to fall apart. And not having a plan at all definitely allows you to fall apart. So this is why we're doing strategic planning. We're starting with the end in mind. And that is not only having a plan, but what are you going to use that plan for? When and where are you going to use the plan? Are you going to have a meeting with somebody where you're going to be like, this is my strategic plan? Who are those people that are going to be in the room? What questions are they going to have? Think about this ahead of time, because then that guides you in the process of building the plan. So for example, you might be using this plan in a board meeting about some big budget change. Like if you're in a decent sized organization and you've got some fundraising and cash, then you know that you're going to have a board, and that on a regular basis, that board's going to want to have some questions about how's the money being spent. And you're like, well, we're spending it like this year, but like COVID-19 hit, therefore we're going to spend it like this. And in order to have that conversation, a strategic plan is useful. Might be useful in bringing in new funders. Somebody says, and I will tell you this from experience, having a good strategic plan that's simple and yet accurate, it's the right level of detail, not too much, not too little, is a great way to fundraise. What do you do at blah, 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 Justice Fighters USA, or whoever you are, of Alabama, Justice Fighters of Texas, of Louisiana, or wherever you might be in the world? And if you can pull out a single piece of paper and be like, this is what we do. And they're like, damn, you got it all organized. This is the high level stuff. This is the big values that we're following. Here's our specific plans for this year. Here's the clients we're serving, or the people we're getting out of prison, or here's the list of laws that are our priority. We hope we'll change them. We're not sure. It's chancy, tough road to hoe. We're going to win this bill, but we might not win that bill, and here's why. But if you can summarize all that in a single piece of paper, and it encapsulates the entirety of your organization, you will impress a funder, I promise you. Could be, and a good strategic plan, believe it or not, and I've seen this in action, could actually be useful every week in your staff meeting. So quite the opposite of what most people think strategic plans are, which is this goofy, fat document that sits on a shelf in a 3-ring binder that nobody, or nowadays people just stick it in some folder in Google Drive and they never see it again. Somebody's coming in the waiting room, great. In fact, if you do strategic planning right and you create a plan that's useful, it's something you can use all the time. Like I was saying about my map out in the woods. If it's a good map, I'm pulling that sucker out like often. I'm literally like holding it as I walk along, or every time there's a junction of one trail and another trail, like, wait a minute, when am I supposed to turn right or left, north or south? Where am I exactly? So am I going uphill or downhill? A good plan will be useful at that level. So how? First is you're going to gather data. And now I'm going to stop for this just a second. This is just wonderful that you're all here. And the super bummer is, and I'm going to send this, I'm going to have to send this after the fact. I'm going to go pull up another document here, which is the workbook that I was going to put in the chat box for you all to look at. And regrettably, that is not, the chat box is not working. All kinds of things are a little funky with Zoom today. Nonetheless, we can still make this work. And if I share my screen now. Okay, now can you all see that okay? And you have to go off mute because I cannot see you. I can only hear you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, this is Ayula, yes. Hey,
Ayula, hi. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to see you. So what I did is slides are a little boring after a while, even if I put nice pictures in them. So what I try to do is also create a workbook or like a handout that, as Angela knows, when I did this session in Tucson, Arizona, when we were there last year. Was that last year? Man, everything's a billion years ago. We use this workbook. And so it's much more like hands-on participatory. You're actually writing out stuff. You're starting to like draft out thoughts about your strategic plan. So I will email, and Angelin, if you could help me out, you can email this to everyone after today's session. But still, we can look at it. You can see this is the first page, and this is some of the stuff we just talked about, being healthy, of what a plan is, what planning is, and like a healthy body, a strategic plan is both strong and flexible. Okay, so now if we were in a session, we were in a room together, we're all talking, we would be talking about gathering data. And when I say data, I mean everything. When I mean everything, I mean everything. So planning is mapping out our best response to what is like the world that we're trying to engage with. You got to have the right people in the room. So you might be an organization that works with, actually, let me just take a break here and welcome some more people. Since we've had some people join, this would actually be really helpful for creating context as we're talking through strategic planning stuff. I'm wondering if we might take a pause here and actually I know this is kind of funny to throw this in the middle, but do some quick intros. If people could just say your name, your pronouns, and your organization. And if you could give me a one-sentence version of what your organization's about. Does that work? Could people try that? So I'm going to model, I'll try, and then I'll pass it along. And hopefully you can see other people on the screen. If you can't, I'll just do the passing for you. But so I'm just going to start by saying my name is Stephen Johnson Grove. He, him, his are my pronouns. I work at the Ohio Transformation Fund, and our why we exist in the world is to cultivate a ecosystem for transforming safety and justice in Ohio. So there you go. How about Malia? Can I pass it to you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Malia. I am a he, she, her. Can you hear me?
Yes, I apologize. I said Malia and it's Malia. Please.
That's okay. I don't even notice those sorts of things. I am in Miami. I'm the executive director for the Ladies Empowerment in Action Program, or LEAP. We are a re-entry service for women transitioning from prison, and we provide a continuum of care that starts with education in prison and continues post-release with transitional housing and employment.
Thank you. You want to call somebody?
Oh, I can't see. Iola. I see one person.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ayula Mitchell, and I am from the San Francisco Bay Area, currently in Southern California. And I am in the process of starting my organization, Educate to Elevate, and my focus is on healing work on both sides of the walls, with those behind the walls, as well as with their families in preparation for them to come home.
Great. How about?
I saw Mommy Activist.
Yeah, who's that?
Good afternoon. I'm Queen Karen Garrison from Washington, D.C., and I have the Mommy Activists and Sons radio show. It's news, information, updates, and helping people impacted by the war on drugs, as well as the prisoners, as well as the impacted family members.
And Queen Karen is my my mentor.
That works two ways.
Wonderful.
So I'm Angeline. I'll go really quickly.
Okay, I'll go Angeline.
Angeline Fraser-Giles. She, her, hers. And I am the executive director of National Network for Justice, and we support nonprofits. That is our role.
Want to call somebody?
I will call Gina.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Gina Wood, and I'm dialing in from Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm on the call today as a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women of Northern Virginia. And we're actually in the process of putting together a new strategic plan, and I thought this session would be helpful as we thought about next steps. Our primary mission is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. Thank you for
Super.
allowing me to be part of this
Yeah.
today.
Since you're dialing in, you probably can't see other names, so I'll just call off ML Smith.
Good morning.
Hi.
Actually, I'm gonna start my video. Can you see me? Okay.
Yeah.
I am ML. My name is Michelle, but I go by my initials. Let's see. I am a member of Filling the Gap. It's a organization out of Cincinnati. We're starting up to support the returning women from prison in that area. And I'm actually in Missouri myself, the founder of Filling the Gap, Dr. Zaria Davis. She is from Cincinnati, so she's a sister and mentor of mine, and so I'm assisting her with that. And I do other lobbying efforts, a couple of organizations in my own state. I'm formerly incarcerated, so I've been, trying to get into this work to learn and to, help those like myself.
That's great. I know Zaria pretty well. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm sitting in Cincinnati right now. She and I have worked together quite a lot over the last few years. So that's super great to know. I haven't met you, ML, so I'm looking forward to. Let's see.
Thank you.
Deanna, I don't think you got it. I mean, I think it's your chance to go.
Okay. My name is Deanna Lupreet, and I am in Austin, Texas, being executive director of the Epicenter Initiative, and take care of youthful offenders serving extreme sentences. Within TDCJ, we have reentry programs. Right now, we're on a legislative endeavor to pass the second look bill, and we've been on this endeavor since 2016. And I'm really jealous of the traction that y'all have in Ohio on your second look bill. Oh my gosh, we're in cahoots with Preston Shipp. And I mean, he is keeping me posted, and we got fingers crossed that we can get Texas to look at Ohio. But that's kind of where we are right now. We need this bill to pass. We need to bring these kids home.
Yeah, we actually have a real book. I can't even tell you the soap opera. It's insane, but we have a shot of getting that bill passed in Ohio.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this will be our third session.
Yeah.
I mean, we are doing all that we can do, and COVID's really knocked us for a loop, but man, we're going to keep going.
All right. And Essie, you want to just introduce yourself as well?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Essie Mathis, and I'm a social justice advocate, among other things. But as of today, for today's purposes, I am the program consultant with the National Network for Justice, which in my mind is the premier organization that connects, supports, and resources state-based organizations. So happy to be here. Hello, everyone.
Hello. And speaking of Dr. Zaria Davis from Cincinnati, look who just showed up at the bottom of my screen.
All right.
Hey, Zaria, this is, although you're arriving at partly through the middle, this is actually perfect. We're doing these quick intros sort of in the middle. It's a weird, out of order way of doing things. So do you want to introduce yourself? ML Smith is here. She also just introduced a little bit about Filling the Gap.
Sure. So I'm like in motion right now, but so I'm masked up. But
Zaria is always in motion.
I am. My name is Dr. Zaria Davis. I'm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have a nonprofit organization. It's called Filling the Gap, and we're working with women who are currently incarcerated as well as formerly incarcerated, providing educational supports and services, as well as working with partner organizations to ensure that people have the supports that they need when they get home. And that's part of my life, but that is the nonprofit side for my particular organization. It's good to be here with you all. Stephen and I work really closely together throughout the state, so glad to be a part.
Yeah, super great. Well, that's perfect. I'm glad you just came. So what we were talking about, you'll catch up on the recording or on the notes totally fine. Zaria, we're talking about strategic planning. I kind of did some intro into the like what and why. When I say strategic planning, this is what I mean. And a lot of it had to do with like the quality of the planning and the process, so that you're doing something that's actually useful and not just a bunch of busy work. So that actually it produces something that you use as an organization for a bunch of different contexts. So now I'm shifting to the how we do it, and I'm gonna take a big risk here and try to do this in breakout groups in a little bit. But first, I'll just talk a little bit about the steps in the planning process by sharing my screen here again. Get back to that. Okay. All right. Good. Hopefully you can see that. Does everybody see on the screen it says gather at the top?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Super great. And I want to see, great. Excellent. So the gathering process. So before you make a plan, you kind of have to it's like you're cooking a big dinner. You got to get all those ingredients out. You got to make sure it's in the fridge. So get it out on the counter. Just pull everything out and set it out where everybody can see it. You may not know where the pieces go together yet. You may take some stuff and toss it out. That's totally fine. But you got to get everything on the table. And so that's what sometimes we call an environmental scan. And to get everything on the table that's necessary to build a good plan, you got to have the right people in the room. And that may be more than just your staff. You know, depending on the size of the organization or the group that you're working with, how big of an effort you're trying to make a strategic plan about, you might just have a couple people. But as you know, it's a bigger and bigger plan, you're going to involve more people. You might, and maybe not for every part of it, but there may be times you might have different separate meetings where you have some board members in the room. Another time you might even, if you have a good relationship with a funder, you might involve a funder. You might involve somebody from another organization that you really, really trust. And you just know that they've got a good brain on their shoulders and you're like, I want them in the room because they're going to help me think about these questions. So you're setting up, remember when we talked about the very beginning, it's like the whole point of the planning is the process and getting those people, those relationships in the room. Because when you have the right kind of hearts and minds in the room together, then you can get the right kind of information. And so that's why it says maybe more than one room, maybe more than once. You might do a couple different efforts. And what you're trying to do in the beginning, what's working, what's not working is a really simple conversation. If you have an existing organization. And you know, it's a simple question, but I think if any of you can imagine certain settings you've been in certain organizations, sometimes that's a risky question because you're like, I know, can I really tell you what I think is not working? Because there's some things not working. You know, that's the kind of conversations that happen sometimes in a good strategic planning process, and they should. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to set up the conversations where people can be honest about everything in the organization. And it might be interpersonal dynamics. Sure, there's that kind of stuff, but it might be at a bigger level. Like, hey, we're getting these grants and we're getting this funding, but I don't think we're having any impact. I don't think we're actually changing the world the way we said we would. You know, have you set up a room and put people in a room so they can have that kind of conversation? That's what you're trying to do. Is set things up so you're getting that kind of good conversation about what really matters in the organization. What's working, what's not working. Another really simple way, has anybody ever heard of the SWOT analysis, S-W-O-T?
Yes.
You know, it's one of those businessy sounding things. I always think it's dorky because it sounds like more technical than it is, and it sounds more impressive than it really is. But it's just a way to organize the conversation, okay? It's like SWOT, and S-W-O-T stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and then T is threats. And so strengths, and you can see hopefully you can see that on the screen. It's not perfectly clear, but strengths are things inside our organization that support our mission, that are going to make us win. We're going to win this bill because we have a great tight-knit team, because we have, you know, our policy director, so-and-so, whoever is on your team, that's let's say your legislative liaison person for your team, is brilliant and has these great relationships with the senators. Another strength inside just might be we've been around for 20 years and people know us. You know, we got cred in the community or in the state house or both, whatever. So that's stuff inside the organization. Weaknesses are stuff inside the organization that's holding back the mission. So, you know, we got some weaknesses like we don't have enough funding. Weakness could be, you know, we've got some broken relationships where there's not a lot of trust in between teams or this person and that person, whatever, you know, that's weaknesses. Opportunities are things outside your organization that support your mission. You know, a new governor gets elected and all of a sudden there's a sea change. This governor, the old governor was hated prison reform, the new one loves it. A new prison director comes in California and all of a sudden Ayula can get in and do things she never could do before. And it was sort of out of her control. She didn't like get to pick that prison director, but all of a sudden the world changes and it's a new opportunity. Stuff happens. So that's outside, right? That's an opportunity. Threats are stuff that happen outside that hinder your mission. The exact opposite thing could happen, right? A new warden comes in, is like shutting that stuff down, can't get in anymore. All of a sudden you got to fill out 30 forms to get a volunteer in, and like everybody gets 12 security checks. And you know, Ayula's nodding her head like, yeah, that's usually how it goes. Yeah, so and I'm not saying there's an answer yet to these threats. What I'm saying is you better get them out there. This is a conversation to have. You get your people in the room and you have the SWOT conversation. You put big charts of paper on the wall. One huge piece of paper for each one, SWOT. Let's talk about our strengths as an organization. Let's talk about our opportunities, threats. Another process that people go through when they're having these big open-ended conversations is appreciative inquiry. Again, it comes out of the business world, which always gives me a little bit of pause because I like, yeah, racial capitalism is the root of everything that's wrong with us in the world right now. Nonetheless, appreciative inquiry has an important lesson for us, which is if you're looking at the SWOT, focus on the left-hand side. That is, what we tend to do as human beings is let's say we did that SWOT analysis and you're like, well, here's the good stuff going on in an organization, but let me list all the stuff that's going wrong. Here's the good stuff happening outside in the world. You know, there's some positives actually going on that give us, you know, a way to win. But let's talk about those horrible Republican jackasses that are racist MFers. You know, like you can imagine the conversation you have. Sorry, I get a little colorful there. I need a filter. But what's the problem is that what you focus on grows. Where you give your energy, you know, as somebody once told me, where attention goes, energy flows. So the more time you spend on the negative side of the ledger, the more it's gonna take up your energy. The more energy you're gonna give to it, and oftentimes the bigger the thing gets. In reality, or at least in your own brain, the bigger the problem gets. If you spend time on your strengths and on the you know, internal, external stuff, you see more opportunity. The more time you spend on opportunity, the bigger the opportunity looks, the more opportunities you start to see. So I'm just going to encourage you. We're just rocketing through this thing right now. But as a habit inside your organization, as a leader, many of you, I just rattled off the people around this call are executive directors of amazing projects and groups, is as a habit, and maybe you already have this habit, but I'll just encourage you to keep doing it, is focus on that positive side so that you and the team and the people you're working with are thinking about how do we grow the strengths in order to overcome the weaknesses. Like instead of thinking about, oh man, I got this problem I got to solve, I got all these weaknesses, or there's this huge threat out there, spend a lot more time on your opportunities and strengths so that they outshine the weaknesses and threats. And eventually the weaknesses and threats diminish. You may have to spend some time explicitly on solving a problem, you know, because somebody hates somebody somewhere in your organization or what have you. Not saying to ignore things, sweep them under the rug, but you spend more time on growing the positives, you end up, problems have a way of going away. And then the third thing, this is just another, you don't have to do all these, this is just like another tactic. Like how do we set up a nice conversation where I'm going to get the right people in the room and kind of get their brains flowing? Well, one of them is ask them 3 questions. That's what these 3 circles are. What are we really good at? You know, where are we, you know, look at the people around the room that are on our staff and maybe a board too. What are we really good at doing? what do we love doing? What makes us most excited? And what can we get funded to do? You know, I know there's a, you know, that foundation, donors get excited about this, what have you. So if you spend some time, what are we good at with our skills? What do we love doing? Those might be very similar perhaps, but maybe distinct. And then where are the funders? You're trying to find the middle of those three circles, right? So have a conversation like that. Get big chart paper on the board, spend some time, get Post-it notes out, give everybody a chance to answer those questions and see where the intersections are. So this whole page here, this whole page of the workbook, again, you're going to get this workbook from Angelin after this session. I'm sorry I couldn't get it to you today, is that process, gathering information. You might do more than one of these little exercises with your board, with your staff, with your team. But do these and consider these information. These are all ways of gathering the information. What's out there in the world, what's inside our organization, what do we got to work with? And see this thing cycle through again if major changes happen in the world. You know, you want to ask these questions every once in a while because things change. The answers you gave last year may not still be fresh. So check into it. The next part is building the plan. So again, if I was giving, I so wish you all had a piece of paper in front of you and a pen where you could write this stuff down. You know, in the ideal world, you would. But what we've got today is there are, I'm going to propose 5 different kind of conceptual levels of information or words you need to memorialize that make up a plan. A strategic plan has 5 almost like levels of specificity. When someone says, what's your organization doing? Or what's your organization about? You have 5 levels to answer. And you can almost think about it as a cocktail party. Someone comes up to you and they're like, what's your organization about? You have 7 words, perhaps 8 or maybe 9 words. And you're like, that's my mission statement. You tell the person your mission statement, they're like, cool. And off they go to get another beer or to talk to somebody else in the corner, right? So you know, right? You have people that are just like, that's all they want to know. Well, somebody might stick around and be like, take a sip and be like, well, tell me a little more. Like, well, that's cool. That sounds like a neat mission. What does that actually look like? Then you're telling them under mission is objectives. And objectives is a statement. So the mission is at the top level. It changes little over the life of the organization. It answers the questions, why do you exist? And what will be left when you're gone? You know, ideally a mission statement at the highest level is going to be like 6 to 12 words, really, really succinct. And this is, you know, people can be different about this. Angelin was saying she's going through a training right now, which I think involves strategic planning. So they may have different ways of verbalizing, you know, defining these terms. But I'm not a big one for spending too much time separating vision and mission. I think just say them together. In other words, your mission is to create a vision. And so it includes both the future and the now. So some people may want to spend a lot of time creating a separate vision statement. That's fine. Have at it. For the purposes today, I'm just going to say, let's start at the top with mission, which is I'm going to create this future world. What does that future world look like? And like, that's what you got to spend some time doing. And that may take a whole session. You might spend an afternoon or days, you know, having that conversation. You know, ML and Dr. Zaria Davis are going to sit down and talk like, what does really successful reentry for women and men in Cincinnati look like? What's the full color, 3-dimensional, 10 years from now, what does that look like? And, you know, and then like, you might draw pictures, you might cut things out of magazines, you might like people you know, put up poetry, whatever. And then you boil it all down, you boil it all down to 6 to 12 words. You're like, that's not possible. And I'm telling you, it is possible. And in fact, it's really useful because you're actually, the cocktail conversation is not just a metaphor. It is, you know, that actually happens. And you can sometimes raise money that way when you can be really succinct about what is the thing. So then, as I said earlier, there's other layers, right? The next layer down is the objective. What is the practical reality your organization is going to create over the next 3 years? So it's sort of like a verbal summary of your goals. We're going to pass legislation and save and get young people or get juveniles with or people with extreme juvenile sentences out of prison. Something like that. Pass legislation and get people with extreme juvenile sentences out of prison. That might be something Deanna says. I don't know. So that could be the next thing down below. Like you've got your mission statement and you're like, this is our objective. Over the next 3 years, I think we're going to be able to knock the, you know, this is what a home run looks like for our organization. Da-da-da-da. And again, let's get back into that cocktail conversation. You know, you're at the party and someone's like, oh, that's cool. And that person goes away. But there's somebody else who's standing there who's like, oh, that's really interesting. You're gonna get people out of prison and you're gonna pass legislation. Well, like what legislation? Like for real, like what does it look like? What does it do? So now that the next layer down is goals. This is where it's very, you gotta be really crisp. And, you know, I know some people, again, you all have been to trainings, you've all talked to other consultants or whatever, and they may have a different definition of objective and goals. But when I say goals, what I mean for this purpose anyway, is numbers or a clear definition of what achieved or not achieved look like. So when you set a goal, it's like, we're going to get House Bill 1028 passed. I don't know, Deanna, what your bill is. In Ohio, it's Senate Bill 256. Okay, so that Deanna was saying, like, really excited about seeing our Senate Bill 256 pass, which is going to allow people with juvenile life sentences to get considered for parole. Right now, they can't. There's people in there who have no possibility of parole, though they committed their offense as juveniles. So if, you know, our goal is getting Senate Bill 256 passed. And this is where, you know, setting goals can get scary. Because when you set real goals, people are like, yeah, but what if we don't get that? Like, are we going to lose funding? Is our board going to get mad at us? Is my executive director going to, you know, I may be lower down in the organization. Is my executive director going to get mad at me? And that's the point of setting a goal, is that you know what winning looks like. It's clear. And part of the culture within your organization has got to be, of course, that if we don't make a goal, we talk about why. Why didn't we get it? Well, you know, the legislature or whatever, you know, we talk about that, or maybe we just didn't have a good, maybe we didn't have a good strategy. Maybe we just, you know, we thought we could win it by testifying at the committee hearing. And we realized that, like, testifying in the committee hearings is not enough. We have to figure out other ways of creating influence. Okay, so next session, let's do a different strategy, right? But you don't get to that harder conversation about why we didn't win unless you set a goal and acknowledge whether you made it or not. And then it could be numbers, right? Ayula, you might say, we're gonna, you know, this healing work about people on the inside, people on the outside. You might have some, like, we're gonna reach 30 people this year, or, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. It's like really setting those numbers and then being able to say halfway through the year or at the end of the year, did we make it? You know, are we there? Well, and if you don't make it, it doesn't mean that you're a complete abject failure. It means you have a story to tell. We got to 20 because, well, like that earlier story, the warden changed. You know, we started in January, things were going great. In September, the warden changed. Now I'm not able to reach my goal because, like, all hell broke loose and you know, it's a lot of headaches. That's fine, you know, but you use the goals as ways to talk about, this is what we're shooting for. When we don't make it, we say so. If we achieve that goal and even go beyond the goal, well, then we can tell that story too. Like, we knocked it out of the park. We not only reached 30 people, we reached 50. And here's why, because, like, because we got special access to the prison and our staff was just really stepped it up. They did incredible healing work. They're just like so much emotional intelligence inside of our team. And they just were so passionate, and guys on the inside just loved telling other guys. And so they started recruiting people into it, and it just kind of caught on like wildfire, and our program took off, whatever it is. Like, you can't tell that story as well unless at the beginning you set a plan with a metric. So the objective and the goals are like twins. The objective is just sort of the headline. It's the quick summary. We're going to reach people on the inside and change legislation. And again, at the cocktail party, somebody's like, well, what does that really mean? For real, like, what does that really mean? Okay, well, when I say reach people on the inside, we're going to reach 70 people this year, and we're going to pass 3 bills. And those bills are going to get people out of prison because da-da-da-da. Like, you know, you're having this level of specificity. That's what your plan does. So again, with this workbook, if we were sitting live and in person in Tucson, Arizona, I wish we were, you would be filling this out right now. We do a little breakout group and we'd fill that out. But unfortunately, we can't do that. So the next thing down below the goals is then how are we going to achieve that? It is where we play and how we win. So where we play is our arenas of service. You can define this any way you want, but you should spend some time having this conversation with whoever's relevant on staff, on board, with your organization. Where we play could be, you know, this particular San Quentin, you know, prison, or it could be the entire Ohio DRC, or just the women's prisons in Ohio's prisons, you know, just women's Ohio prisons. Or for Zaria Davis and ML Smith, it could be anyone coming home from prison or jail into Hamilton County, Ohio. You define it the way you want to define it, but you know, first you got to define it. It's like, what's our scope? You can't serve everybody everywhere all the time. So be clear. Where is it that we play? Like, what's our zone? Could be the state house. You know, we play in the state house of, you know, going to Columbus in Ohio. It's going to Columbus and trying to get the state legislature to pass whatever law. How we win is our distinct methods and tactics for achieving our goals. So like, I used to work at the Ohio Justice Policy Center, and one of our key things was litigation. We were lawyers. So our key, you know, tactic obviously is going to court, suing somebody, suing the prison system for, you know, denying medical care to people in prison, what have you. That's one of our key things is litigation. And for us, when I say distinct methods, so we would always say zealous, you know, at OJPC, we had this thing, we would talk about zealous client-centered advocacy, because we knew there was lawyers out there. We knew there was civil rights lawyers out there. We knew there was the legal aid office and there was the public defenders, and we had some friends in those organizations, but we were different. We were a different kind of organization. And one of our things, not the only thing, but one of the things that was like for us was a non-negotiable, and that we held up as like a kind of a pole, you know, a standard by which we defined ourselves, which is zealous client-centered advocacy. We were dogged. We just never gave up, and our clients were always the one at the front. They're the ones who decided how the case was going to go, not us. We may be lawyers and new legal strategy, but they're the ones deciding, are we going to go this way or that way? You know, because you can get into complicated choices in a lawsuit, right? And we got to decide, like, who gets to call the shots here when we get to a hard choice. Is it us or the client? And for us, it was always the client. So that's the kind of thing. You may have a culture, a value in your organization that's like, when push comes to shove, this is the thing that decides it. This is the thing that matters for us. That's part of your strategies, right? That's part of your identity as an organization. So put that into the verbs, put that into the nouns, the words that you use to describe your strategies. And I will say strategies, you'll have, some people say, in fact, it's just one strategy with multiple planks. You could call it, you've got strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3. I've got this 3-part strategy. Or you could say, I've got 3 strategies, plural. I don't care how you verbalize it. But the point is that you usually have multiple. Deanna was just talking about, like, serving people. You got direct client service, and then changing a law in the legislature. 2 very different strategies. We'll separate them out, right? Ayula may have stuff for people on the inside and stuff for people on the outside. You know, and those might actually be 2 kind of different things. It may be 2 different kinds of programs or whatever. You're listing these things out as like key planks in your strategy. And in the world that I play in is that you can try to experiment with getting this down to between 3 and 5, maybe between 3 and 6 strategies in your organization. If you're going to kind of create buckets of work, that's another way people talk about what are the main buckets of work in your organization. Boil them down to 3 to 5. And that's where you've got, you know, your litigation, you've got your inside work, you got your outside work, you got your legislative work, you got your client work. I'm working with the young people, I'm working with the adults, whatever it is, whatever the breakdowns are, buckets of work. And the key thing is this is where you get to making the strategic plan is really real, is that assign an owner to that strategy. Who is the captain of that one? Who's the captain of that one? Who's accountable? You know, in organizer language, they say, who's the A? Who's the accountable person for each plank in this strategy? the one who, they don't do all the work. They definitely shouldn't do all the work, probably, if you've got a big enough team. But they're the one at the end of the day who owns that bucket and decides like, okay, we're setting the goals. This is what this bucket is going to achieve this year. I'm organizing my team and rallying my team and supporting my team so that we're achieving those goals under that bucket. Each plank or strategy plank has a bucket, has an owner, excuse me. And the other thing, and this gets dicey, I know, but this is where these conversations, like, again, what I'm talking about is process, and setting a process that forces decisions that are hard decisions, but are so valuable for producing a map that's worthwhile. You know, I was talking at the beginning of this whole thing, it's like, what are the decisions about what goes in and what goes out? What is priority? So this is where it gets hard. But once you define the buckets of work, because you got 3 buckets, 5 buckets, whatever it is, these strategies, right, is to prioritize them. If our budget gets slashed in half next year, what's number one? What's the thing that we will not, what's going to go and what's going to stay? And this gets hard because people own their stuff. They're very wedded to their stuff. And if someone's nose is going to get out of joint, I get it. Nonetheless, you've got to have this conversation now because that stuff happens. Funding goes away. The warden changes. The governor gets elected or unelected. Stuff happens. And you've got to know, at least try to make these choices up front so that you're ready when the stuff hits the fan. If you could only do one kind of work, what would it be? If we could only do 2 kinds of work, what would the second type be, etc. That's the series of questions. You're forcing yourself to make choices and prioritize. And it doesn't mean that the person who's working on strategy 4 is a less important person at all, because strategy 4 may be like really hitting home runs, and eventually, maybe in a year or 2, that might become strategy 1 because the world changes. And while we decided like that's actually where our strength as an organization is, so we're going to pull that up and make that number 1. Great. That's fine. Like people are not less important because we've put the priority down the list. It's just a way to make choices. And then the last level, this is okay. You're at the cocktail party. Someone's asked about your mission. Someone's asked about your under your mission is objectives, and then you've got specific goals. Now you've got strategies. These are buckets of work. A strategy is really a bucket. It's not like the only project, but it's like a bucket. Inside of that bucket, there may be multiple projects, and they're clustered. You shouldn't have a catch-all bucket, by the way. It's just like miscellaneous. Never, this is like the drawer in your kitchen. Do not have a drawer in your organization that's just like the miscellaneous drawer. Ayula knows what I'm talking about. We all have it, right? It's where all the packets are. It's where all the it's where the screwdriver is, and there's some hot sauce in there, and there's like some paper clips and whatever. No, you're going to have clearly defined important buckets of work in your organization, and then inside each one is going to be a project, and there may be multiple projects inside each one, and those projects have plans, and those could be on other separate pieces of paper, other documents. You've got a plan for each thing. You got a plan for House Bill 1025, which might be different than the plan that you have for Senate Bill 332. If you're an organization that works on multiple kinds of legislation, sometimes something's going to move different than something else because this senator is got a lot of power and it's going to slide right through, and this one's going to be difficult and we've got a big coalition to deal with, whatever, So create your plans separately, even if they fit underneath each strategy plank. So again, you'll get this workbook to work through. I'm going to try to wrap up here. What seems impossible, but I'll tell you is possible, is that you can, after you do this work and you do it really well, you may have multiple sessions having these conversations with your board and your staff, and maybe others, as we talked about, that you could take all of that, and break it down to 1 page. The front side of 1 page, 8.5 by 11. Don't give me that legal size paper. I know I'm a lawyer. I don't want that 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. That seems insane. I'm a kind of guy that likes espresso. I don't know, Zaria, if we've ever had espresso together, but like I do not like those big tanks of coffee. I know some people do. They go to the gas station, they get this thing that's like 50 ounces of coffee. That's insane to me. I want it like this big. And and that it's beautiful and well done. That is actually possible with your strategic plan, is that you could take all that work and boil it down. Now, what I'm laying out for you here is a strategic planning document. This whole workbook that we just went through is a process that possibly, I don't know your strengths, but you might be able to lead that. Several people said they're executive directors. Great, you might be the one to lead that. You might have somebody inside your organization whose brain likes this stuff, a deputy director or assistant or something like that, who is like what we like to call the internal process owner, who you're like, I want strategic planning done, but I need you to do it. And they might pick this up and love it. You might, some people do, a lot of people do, is they go to a consultant. There's value there. Sometimes you have a board member who really loves this stuff and can do it really well. So you've got to have somebody who knows, who loves this and will carry the process forward and not forget, oh yeah, we were in that strategic planning process and we got through step 3, but we still have 4, 5, 6 to do. You got to have somebody who owns the process and pulls you guys along so that you don't lose that. It looks like Queen's waving by. Are you heading out, Queen? All right. Thank you. I'll get you this workbook. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate you. And then the last thing, after you've written this plan and boiled it all down to one page, is to check it. And that's where you might, this is where you might involve funders. And it's actually a really engaging way to eventually even recruit a funder in. Your current funders, or maybe a new funder you haven't talked to before, be like, hey, our organization went through a big strategic planning process, and I'd just like to get your thoughts on it. You might say that's crazy, like that you don't have that kind of relationship with any funders. That's fine. I'm just trying to say that there are different kinds of people out in the world that could support you in checking your plan. You might call, Zaria might call Ayula, or Ayula might call Deanna, or Deanna might call ML. This is what NNJ exists to do, is to connect people across organizations, is so that like, you're like, hey, I'm trying to get the prison in Georgia to stop shackling women while they're pregnant. Our friend Pamela Wynn, who won that, right? In Georgia, amazing. So we might check, you might call up Pamela and she might be able to like, listen, your plan makes a lot of sense, but what about this? I don't see you talking anywhere about da-da-da-da. That's what you might want to check your plan. And then use that plan in all kinds of ways. I'm going to stop here. I know this strategic planning stuff, I love it. And it just takes so much time to really do it well. To really, obviously we didn't create the strategic plan for your organization today. That would be silly to try to even accomplish that in an hour. But this is like sketching out a process by which you maybe, I think not maybe, but I think you really could land a final product that's useful. And that it's a living document that evolves forward with your organization. Let me stop there and try to take some questions. I know I talked a lot, but yeah, please go ahead. Anybody, Angeline, anyone?
Stephen, thank you very much for doing this. I was just going to suggest, because we don't have a lot of time and because we're working in this alternate universe that is Zoom, if those of you who are on this particular call, if you want to get the workbook and then work through it for maybe a couple weeks and then come together as a group and just kind of flesh out some ideas, I'm sure Stephen will be willing to pop back on and just have another call that's not like a Zoom type of call.
Absolutely. In fact, I think that's probably makes the most sense. Yeah, that makes the most sense. Is I'll send you the workbook that we talked about today, and I volunteer to talk to anybody who's here. If you want to be like, listen, that was great, but I didn't understand what the heck you were talking about, or we just, I have so many questions, and that's fine. In fact, we probably don't have time to get into everything right now. But if you want that kind of engagement, happy to do that for anyone for free for any chunk of time.
Yeah. So once Stephen sends me the workbook, I will send it to everyone who's on this call, and then we will go from there and maybe try to schedule something so that we can do that. If that's if people can join or not, you don't have to. Just it's just as Steve, what
totally up to you.
Doing is we're trying to connect people and support you however we can. So join the group or not, or call Stephen or call.
Yeah. Sound good? Does anybody have any questions now or thoughts?
I just wanted to say thank you. It was a lot
I
of
know.
information.
I know.
But I'm looking forward to the workbook and being able to go through it at my own pace and
Yeah.
then reconnecting with you. But it definitely was a really, really good, a lot of nutshell information. So thank you for your time.
Ayula, I remember sitting next to you in Tucson. So it's so good to see you. And like, I would love to talk more. I hate
Absolutely.
Zoom. I'm so tired of having Zoom conversations, but it's the best I got. And so it'd be so cool to connect. Yeah. Anytime.
I was just gonna say, I know I jumped on late, but I know ML was on. So our organization is fairly new in the area, and so really working to build out our strategy, as well as just making sure that we're securing the appropriate funding for the supports we need for those we're serving. So I know that this information is going to be helpful, and I will be harassing you, Stephen, as we continue to grow in this process.
That's awesome. Love it. I love it when Dr. Zaria Davis harasses me. It's like my favorite thing. Okay. Well, good. And Angela, I don't know if it came through yet. I did email you the link to the workbook. It's a PDF. And yeah, you can send that around. People can print it out, scribble on it, whatever. And the cover of the workbook, you'll see is my phone number, my direct mobile phone number, and my email address. So you can just, if you want to just email or text me anytime. I'm just like Bren and Jay. I'm open all the time. Okay, Angela's going to be like, you're going to regret that.
No, but thank you guys. We're going to get set up for our next session, which is participatory defense. So thank you. You have my email and number if you need to reach me for anything, and I will be sending the workbook out. Just give me, I'll get it out by today. Just give me a little, we're
Cool.
back to back in some of our sessions. Okay?
Super. All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank y'all.
Yep.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Appreciate all the info.